Hey guys, welcome to Study IQ. In this video, we shall discuss a very important yet sensitive topic, Sri Lanka Emergency 2018. So in this video, we shall understand why this small island nation has imposed emergency on itself, what is the cause, why is it happening, what can we expect out of it, and what can we expect for Sri Lanka's future. So a lot to know, a lot to discover. Let's start. So what just happened recently? Sri Lanka on 6th March 2018 declared a state of emergency for 10 days, alright, 10 days to curb heightening violence targeting Sri Lanka's Muslim minority. That is right. The Muslim community in Sri Lanka had to face a lot of violence because a riot broke out. I will explain all that, whatever happened. We shall read all the reports, but the development follows days of anti-Muslim attacks in Kandy. Kandy is a city in Sri Lanka. The riots, according to the local reports, have so far claimed at least 2 lives and many have been injured. Now allow me to show all of this on a map. So as you can see, this is the Indian Ocean region and this is the country of Sri Lanka. In the middle of Sri Lanka, you will find the city of Kandy. It is quite a big city in Sri Lanka and it is part of the central province of Sri Lanka. Now if we notice that Sri Lanka has a very important neighbor right here, Maldives. Although they don't really share a territorial boundary, but it is rather near Sri Lanka, isn't it? Maldives has imposed emergency on itself as well. The president of Maldives, Abdullah Yameen, has imposed emergency there, and we can clearly see that there is a sense of instability in the Indian Ocean region. The reason, of course, can vary, but definitely this region is witnessing a sense of instability, which is quite dangerous. So these right here are some of the images from Sri Lanka that people have been sharing on Twitter, and as you can see, the situation seemed quite chaotic before the emergency was imposed, and you can see these photos as well. So even though the government has imposed emergency, it is still under attack for delayed response to violence. The riots were triggered by the death of a 41-year-old man from the majority Sinhalese community who was beaten up by a mob, reportedly Muslim, following a road rage incident. So clearly we can see that the tensions were already so high that it took just a road rage incident to convert into something much larger, a much larger riot in the city of Kandy in the central province of Sri Lanka, and now the entire government has to impose emergency in the entire country to make sure situation remains calm. This isn't the first time Sri Lanka is facing such riots. As you can see, this is an article from the New York Times. The article reads, Buddhist Muslim unrest boils over Sri Lanka. This article is from 2014. So Sri Lanka has had a history of communal tension. The tension has been growing between the two communities, the Buddhist community and the Muslim community in Sri Lanka over the past 4 years, with some hardline Buddhist groups accusing Muslims of forcing people to convert to Islam and vandalizing Buddhist archaeological sites. Of course, these are all accusations. Now we must understand that religious and ethnic violence can turn deadly in Sri Lanka as well, where Muslims account for 10% of the population and Buddhist Sinhalese make up 75% of the total population. The 2014 Sri Lanka riots that we were discussing earlier between the Buddhist and the Muslim community are also known as Aluthangama riots. The riot killed 4 people and 80 were left injured. It was followed by a protest march by Buddhist group Bodhu Bala Sena. We will discuss what this group is and what their objectives are. This is quite important. So at that time, the president of Sri Lanka, Sirisena ji, had vowed to investigate the anti-Muslim crimes after assuming power in 2015, but no significant progress has been made thus far. About the Bodhu Bala Sena. The Bodhu Bala Sena is a Sinhalese Buddhist nationalist organization based in Colombo, Sri Lanka. The organization claims to fight for the preservation of Buddhism. They believe that in Sri Lanka, Buddhism is the core of their identity and they want to make sure that Buddhists remain in majority. Of course, the way they are trying to achieve this objective is certainly questionable. They feel that their identity is being eroded by multiculturalism, liberalism, and foreign elements. We can clearly see that they have an undertone of xenophobia as well. The tiny nation of Sri Lanka has had a history of communal violence, but it also has had a history of emergency being imposed by the government as well. Now, the latest emergency of 2018, March 2018, this will be the first time since August 2011. So, it hasn't been a very long time since emergency has been imposed on this tiny island nation. So this will be the first time since 2011 that a state of emergency will be in force in this Indian Ocean island country. The state of emergency allows the deployment of troops on the street, search and arrest people without a warrant. So the government desperately wants to make sure that everything remains calm, there is no further violence, and things do not escalate and turn into something what happened in Myanmar. So Sri Lanka has had a long history of state emergency during the LTT rebellion as well. We are talking about at least 2 or 3 decades ago, when LTT was a force to reckon with in Sri Lanka, and the government had to impose emergency multiple times in order to combat the LTTE. So in the last 20 to 30 years, we have seen a trend in Southeast Asia. We have seen a very steady rise in the number of fringe elements in various countries like Thailand, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, where some fringe elements claiming to be Buddhist militants are attacking religious minorities. I'm not saying that these groups are any way connected to the religion Buddhism, but they claim to be Buddhist militants, of course. And most of the people there seem to be supporting them as well. Of course, the rationale that these militant Buddhists give for their actions is that they do not want to become a minority in their own country. But if we look at the statistics, it seems quite difficult to see how a country like Myanmar or Sri Lanka will become a country of Buddhist minority when the 70% population of Sri Lanka is Buddhist, 88% population of Myanmar is Buddhist. So clearly it will take more than a century for any religious minority in these respective countries to become a majority and overthrow Buddhism as the majority religion. And even that seems very unlikely. So clearly we can see there is a lot of fear mongering going on here, and the reason behind it is primarily to gain political mileage and to grab more votes. The fear of minorities is a tool that has been used by many groups around the world to gain attention. For example, in USA, we have seen a sudden emergence of neo-Nazis. Yes, Nazism in USA. You will see many groups like these who idolize Adolf Hitler, and they believe that America should remain a predominantly white race dominated country, and they want to shun away people from the Middle East or other countries of the world. So we can see a pretty much similar model of fear of minorities being used over here. And then we have Pakistan. In Pakistan, there is a religious minority called Ahmadiyya community, and they have been persecuted for a very long time. In Pakistan's constitution, the second amendment to the constitution of Pakistan in Ordinance 20 declare Ahmadiyyas to be non-Muslims and further deprive them of religious rights. So we can see that this is actually a human problem, that there shall always remain a fear of minorities, and some groups will try to make sure that enough attention is given to that so that they can get some political mileage out of it. So coming back to the Ahmadiyya community issue in Pakistan, hundreds of Ahmadiyyas were killed in the 1953 Lahore riots. Then in 1974 anti-Ahmadiyya riots took place, and then in 2000 again many Ahmadiyyas were killed. So again they are made the scapegoats. The attention of the majority is focused on the minorities, and usually they are blamed for most of the problems in a certain country. Rather than finding a logical solution, people's emotions are played with. Now there is a huge concern in India about the situation in Sri Lanka. Why? Because the last time there was such a situation in Sri Lanka where minorities were persecuted, of course I'm talking about the Tamil minority in Sri Lanka, when it was persecuted and LTTE emerged. At that time, it actually created a lot of differences between the Indian government and the Sri Lanka government, and because of that, both the countries couldn't really develop much closer relations. So right now, because of this issue, India would certainly not want to have bad relations with Sri Lanka, especially with China entering the Indian Ocean region with its money power. So definitely in the long run, India would want things to calm down in Sri Lanka. Also, the Indian cricket team is in Sri Lanka as well for the Nidahas Trophy. Just remember the name of this trophy because this has been in the news a lot recently because of all the things that have been happening in Sri Lanka. So even though the situation is tense there, the government has imposed emergency. The Nidahas Trophy will continue, and hopefully we will see this small island nation come back to a calm, peaceful state, and this emergency phase will go away without any chaos. So this is the end of our video. Thanks for watching. God bless you all.